Okay, so we're going to discuss all about your Vibrio, Aeromonas, Plesiomonas, and we have your Chromabacterium. And the latter part will be discussing all about your Microarray, your Campylobacter, and your Helicobacter. Okay, so this group of the bacteria are basically able to ferment your glucose. So in your oxidation fermentation tube, it would have here both na tube in the open and the one overlaid with the mineral oil to have a yellow na color. Okay, we have here so we'll start the discussion with the Vibrios. Okay, we have general characteristics. So our Vibrios are usually found here in the wide variety of aquatic environment distribution. Could be found here in either your brackish water, fresh water, estuarine water, and any form of body of water. And most likely they are predominating or they are having a population overgrowth here during the summer month. So they thrive primarily at the temperature of 20 degrees Celsius. And the Vibrio poisoning most likely is very common during the summer month because again they tend to overpopulate during the higher temperature at 20, more than 20 degrees Celsius or summer months. So most likely they are causing gastroenteritis or diarrhea, vomiting with food poisoning related to this one. Okay, we have here the microscopic characteristics of your Vibrios. This one is your gram-negative rods that could maybe in the form of straight, pero siyang straight, curve, or would have characteristic na comma shape. And this one is highly motile because meron siyang flagella. The flagella here, polar, sheeted. That one could be isolated from your broth medium or liquid medium. But it appears to be peritrichous, surrounding throughout the body, and unsheeted if this was being collected or isolated from your solid na culture media na medium. Okay, so motility characteristic will have here darting motility or shooting star motility characteristic. Okay, we have here the general characteristics for your Vibrio. So again, they tend to, okay, they are facultative anaerobe. So being facultative anaerobe, so they tend to thrive in the presence or even the absence of your oxygen. They are oxidase positive. And at the same time, they tend to ferment your glucose. Kaya nga they are yellow in color in your oxidation fermentation tube. Another one, they have the enzyme nitroreductase that will allow them to reduce your nitrate to nitrite. So some of the species here are susceptible to your vibriostatic disc. This is your antibiotic disc. Okay, your O129. Chemical formula for that, we have your diamino diisopropylpteridine. So later on, we'll be discussing that some of them are susceptible for this one, but others would be more of, they are resistant to that. Another one, we have your string test with the use of your 0.5% sodium deoxycholate. So since they are highly mucoid, they tend to form here a string na hindi, string is para siyang string, di ba? So, hindi siya napuputol agad if you have your bacterial inoculum because they have a highly mucoid na colony. And that will identify your Vibrios. I think most of your Vibrios will give a positive result with the string test. Another one, halophilic. Pag sinabing halophilic, they are salt-loving. So some of them are really an absolute requirement for the high salt environment or high sodium chloride na concentration, except your Vibrio cholerae and Vibrio mimicus. Vibrio cholerae and Vibrio mimicus will able to survive in the presence or even in the absence of your high salt environment. But then again, some, with the exception of the two, others na ating mga Vibrios, they will really survive only in the presence of your high sodium chloride environment. They will die pag wala sodium chloride. Exception for that na halophilic natin is your Mimicus and your Vibrio cholerae. So we start our first species for the Vibrio here. We have your Vibrio cholerae. Okay, the Vibrio cholerae try to cause here your cholera. And cholera here because of ingestion of your contaminated food or shellfish, most likely shellfish poisoning. And the gastroenteritis produced here by your Vibrio cholerae is due to the toxin cholera gen or your cholera toxin. This toxin try to increase your adenylate cyclase na enzyme, increasing your cyclic AMP. That results in your hypersecretion of your electrolytes, sodium, potassium chloride, bicarbonate, and water. And therefore, nagkakaroon tayo ng profuse watery diarrhea which has a characteristic na rice water stool na characteristic. Okay, then we have here the virulence factors associated with your Vibrio cholerae. So again, they have the somatic antigen or the O antigen. And of course, they have also here the H antigen or flagellar antigen because they are motile. So based on that, we can divide your Vibrio cholerae as to their subgroups. Based on the O somatic antigen, we have your Vibrio cholerae O1, O139, and we have also non-O1. Your non-O1, because it has been identified here because it do not react with your anti-sera na O1. Kaya non-O1. But the two here, pathologic one, we have here your Vibrio cholerae O1 and your O139 because they are causing here your epidemic cholera. Okay, then we have here also based on the Vibrio cholerae O1 biogroup, they can also divide here into the several serotypes. Again, serotypes based on their serological typing results. So based on that, we can classify your Vibrio cholerae O1 into the three serotypes. We have here your Agawa, which contains the A and the B na serotype. Inaba is your A to C, and A and C na serotype, and we have your Hikojima, which is the ABC na serotype. Biogroup naman, so we can classify, so again, pag biogroup, they just divided based on their biochemical reactions. Based on the biogroup, your Vibrio cholerae O1 could be divided into your L-Tor or even your classical. So we have here different biochemical reaction differentiating the two na biogroup, L-Tor and classical. The first one, with their ability to agglutinate with your chicken red blood cells. We have also here beta hemolytic reaction with your SBA, and we have phosphorescence positive are all with the L-Tor and negative blood sa ating classical. Your antibiotic na polymyxin B would have a susceptible na result with your L-Tor that will consider that one as effective for the L-Tor but not with your classical. Okay, then we have also here the other species of your Vibrio. So we have your Parahemolyticus. Okay, the Vibrio parahemolyticus is the one causing here the summer diarrhea in Japan. So very common among Japan here, try to have an outbreak in the Japan. Okay, the virulence factor, again, this one try to cause your gastroenteritis or diarrhea, then just like your Vibrio cholerae. But aside from that one, also try to cause your other manifestation like it try to cause your wound infection. You could also have here your eye, your ear infection, and even your pneumonia. Okay, the virulence factor, this parahemolyticus produces here Kanagawa toxin. Kanagawa toxin is a toxin responsible here for lysing the human red blood cells in your special na mannitol salt agar. You call it one as your Wagatsuma agar. Then we have also here Vibrio vulnificus. Okay, the Vibrio vulnificus here primarily causing two main infection. We have your primary septicemia or sepsis. Another one is your wound infection. So this would have an increased infection for those patients having a liver disease and for those patients having a high iron content in their body in the case of your hemochromatosis. And this one is lactose fermenter. So by nature, ang ating Vibrio, they tend to be non-lactose with your makongki agar. But this one is lactose fermenter, so it would have your pink na colony. All the other Vibrios natin, they are non-lactose fermenter. They are eventually they are having a colorless na colony characteristic. But this one is lactose fermenter, your vulnificus. Another one, we have your Vibrio alginolyticus, and we regard this one as a strict halophile. So it's always, this one would have a strict requirement for your sodium chloride. It can grow in the presence of 1% sodium chloride or it go as high as 10% sodium chloride. And it try to cause hair wound infection. Again, this is strictly halophilic, and therefore it will not grow if your culture media do not have a sodium chloride. Okay, then we have here the specimen collection and transport of the specimen for the Vibrio, diagnosis of your Vibrio. So the ideal sample here for diagnosis, you can have your pus cells, you can have here your tissues, or you can also have your body fluids. For the stool sample, with your swab, you can have that one provided as being transported with the Carrier transport medium. You could also have your stool sample here that's being put on in your alkaline peptone water that would have the pH of 8.5. Okay, then we have here the culture characteristics. So in your SBA or chocolate agar plate, it would appears to be beta hemolytic. That would appears to be medium to large. The colony, that one is iridescent with the greenish hue. Okay, for the Makongi agar, again, your Vibrios are non-lacto fermenter except your Volnificus. So they, or the other, they appear to be colorless, again, except your Volnificus that it would appear to be pink na color because lacto fermenter ang ating Volnificus. Then we have your thiosulfate, citrate, sucrose, biosos here is a selective and differential culture media for identification of your Vibrio. We'll discuss this later on na lang. Okay, the next species here or the genus here with your this group na bacteria, we have your uh, we have here your Aeromonas hydrophila. Okay, your Aeromonas hydrophila from the words of hydro, so this is a water-loving. It tries to ferment your glucose. Its ubiquitous could be found in wide environmental distribution. Okay, we have here the virulence factor of the Aeromonas. We have your heat stable or even your heat labile na enterotoxin. Again, enterotoxin ulit siya, so it try to cause your diarrhea. This would have here a very unique na or identified na 5 diarrheal syndrome associated for that. And there are 5 different types of diarrhea associated with your Aeromonas. The first one, acute secretory diarrhea accompanied here by vomiting. Another one, acute dysenteric. So my blood, my pus associated with or try to resemble here the dysentery caused here by our Shigella. Another one, the diarrhea try to cause here your chronic diarrhea which try to last for more than 10 days. And another one, we have here your cholera-like diarrhea related to your Vibrio cholerae. So it would have a rice water stool na manifestation. And the last, the diarrhea in the form of your nebulous syndrome. And that would be characterized, it would resemble here our traveler's diarrhea. This is caused here by our ETEC or enterotoxigenic E. coli. Aside from your diarrhea, those try to cause your extraintestinal manifestation like wound infection, septicemia, and your meningitis. Okay, we have your laboratory tests that will identify your Aeromonas. So, in the gram stain results, so this would have your gram-negative pa din siya, but usually it's more of straight rods. Comparing this one with your Vibrio, ang Vibrio natin usually curved sa kanyang straight rods. In the SBA, this one that appears to be large na colony, which is round and raised, and even opaque na colony. Then is also oxidase positive, spot indole positive, and ano siya, lactose fermenter. So dalawa ng lactose fermenter natin with this group, Volnificus and even your Aeromonas. But Aeromonas would be different from your Vibrio ha. But I mean, we're talking about sa this group ng bacteria natin. Vibrio Aeromonas, Plesiomonas, and your Chromabacterium. Then it also grow here in your CIN. Okay, that's your colistin, ergasin, nalidic acid. Tama ba? Cefsolidine, ergasin, novobiocin. Okay, that would have here a pink center in the colony. Okay, the next one, we have here your Plesiomonas shigelloides. Plesiomonas shigelloides today has been regrouped. It belongs already to your Enterobacteriaceae. Remember that your Enterobacteriaceae are oxidase negative, and we consider this one as oxidase positive. And therefore, basically, this one would eventually be the only na oxidase positive for your Enterobacteriaceae. Okay, then we have this one. So, Plesiomonas shigelloides try to cause here variety of infections, including your gastroenteritis, bacteremia, and septicemia. For the colony characteristics, this one, in the gram stain, this one is gram-negative rods, but this one is more of straight. Katulad siya ni ating Aeromonas. Okay, and this one would eventually be, in the SBA, this one is non-hemolytic. Gamma hemolytic siya, non-hemolytic, producing here shiny, opaque, and smooth na colony. And in your inositol, brilliant, green, basalt, agar would have your white to pink na colony characteristics. Another differentiation here would be being positive with your 3 decarboxylase na tests. We have your lysine decarboxylase, your ornithine decarboxylase, and your arginine dihydrolase na tests. Then we have here your Chromabacterium violation. So this would be an opportunistic na bacteria which try to cause their infections among patients with the chronic granulomatous disease. Chronic granulomatous disease patient would have defective with their neutrophil, which is ability to kill the ingested pathogen. Hindi niya kayang patayin. And that's why it would be related to your neutropenic deficit patient. So problem with the neutrophil. So also try to cause here variety of infection, including your osteomyelitis. So that's your bone disease. We have also here your wound abscess. We have also here the septicemia and your gastroenteritis. Gastrointestinal tract infection, gastroenteritis. Okay, then we have here the colony characteristics of our Chromabacterium violation. So this one would have here gram-positive, slightly curved. So almost pareho siya ni Vibrio natin, but it's more slightly curved. And this one would have here the rounded ends. Another thing about this one is, so tinawag siyang violation because it would have here a violet na pigment that try to produce in the form of your violacine. And that one, we consider that one as your ethanol soluble na pigment, but that one is water insoluble. Your Pseudomonas is more of the water soluble na pigment, but this one is water insoluble. Okay, so the problem with this one, since it would have produces here a pink na pigment, so it might hinder here the interpretation of your oxidase na tests. Okay, then the other here is ammonium cyanide and reduced nitrate. Also try to reduce your nitrate. It would have the enzyme nitrate reductase, as well as also glucose fermenter. Okay, then we have also here your laboratory diagnosis for all this group here. The first one, we have your TCBS, your thiosulfate, citrate, sucrose, biosalts. Again, this is a selective media for your Vibrio. So this culture media contains the following. So it contains the carbohydrate in the form of your sucrose. And meron siyang bile, which are inhibitory to other organisms that will only allow the growth of your Vibrio. So this in the form of your sodium citrate plus your oxgal. Plus, our indicator for this one is your bromthymol blue. And therefore, our positive result for this one capable of the sucrose fermentation would have a yellow na colony. In the case of your Vibrio cholerae, Vibrio alginolyticus, and Vibrio flavialis. For those naman na mga Vibrios natin, other Vibrios, they can grow in the presence of your TCBS. But then again, they are not able to ferment your sucrose. And therefore, they would have green na color or blue-green na color. So, wala akong nilagay dito because kung sino dito ang positive, so ang matitira na lang those are negative na mga Vibrios. But again, they are able to grow in this one, but only that some ferment the sucrose, others do not ferment the sucrose. Okay, another test, we have the string test. Okay, the string test is with the use of your 0.5% sodium deoxycholate. So you have your bacterial inoculum, you just need to add the 0.5% sodium deoxycholate, then observe here for the formation of the string. So the string test is for identification of your Vibrio lang. Okay, it will not give a positive result for the Aeromonas, Plesiomonas, or Chromabacterium. Another one, we have your vibriostatic disc, your O129. This is your diamino diisopropyl pteridine na antibiotic disc. So, ang susceptible natin only includes your Vibrio cholerae and your Plesiomonas shigelloides. All the rest na group here, they are resistant. So, summary, we have that. Okay, for the Vibrios, we have the TCBS. Again, the TCBS, okay, would allow the growth of all your Vibrios because this one is highly selective for the Vibrios. Only that some of them tend to ferment your sucrose. Ang nagpe-ferment lang ng sucrose natin is your Vibrio cholerae. Okay, but not with your mimicus or other Vibrios. It could have variable like in the case of your alginolyticus, diba? Nagpe-ferment siya ng sucrose. So this one would have a yellow na colony. This one would have a green na colony. Okay, the string tests, all of them will give a positive result because again, your string tests are for the Vibrio. O129, ang susceptible lang natin would be your Vibrio cholerae. All the rest na Vibrios natin, they are resistant. Broth with sodium chloride. So, again, since ang ating Bimicos sa Vibrio cholerae, they are not strict halophiles, so they're able to grow on that. But all the other Vibrios, especially for the Alginolithicus, for example, so di ba halophile siya, so it will not grow in the presence of the sodium chloride. Okay, we have here broth with 6.5% sodium chloride. So, lahat ng Vibrios natin, including your strict halophiles. Voves Posgower only give a positive result for your Vibrio cholerae. Okay, then we have here the biochemical reaction comparing your Vibrios with your Aeromonas and your Plesiomonas. Again, TCBS, ang magpapositive lang natin ay Vibrio natin, cholerae and other Vibrio. This is not a selective, because again, this is a selective media only for the Vibrios, not for the Aeromonas, not for the Plesiomonas, not for the Chromabacterium. The string test is only for the Vibrio cholerae and your other Vibrios. That's for the Vibrios lang. Negative ang Aeromonas, Plesiomonas. 0129 susceptibility testing, susceptible ang ating Vibrio cholerae and your Plesiomonas. Aeromonas and other Vibrios would have a resistant result. Broth with without sodium chloride, so it will give a positive result here. Or it will allow the growth of your Vibrio cholerae, even your Aeromonas and Plesiomonas. Pero pag halophiles pag halophiles ang ating Vibrio, they will not grow pag walang sodium chloride. Since ang Vibrio cholerae natin naman hindi siya halophile, even your Mimicos mag-grow siya dito. Broth with 6.5 sodium chloride is only for the Vibrios, including your, of course, the halophiles are going to grow on that. And this high salt environment will not allow the growth of your Aeromonas, Plesiomonas, or even your Chromabacterium. Inositol fermentation and with your brilliant green biosalt agar is for the Plesiomonas. It will give a white to pink na colony characteristics. We have also here positive for the lysine, the carboxylase, arginine, dihydrolase, and ornithine, the carboxylase only for the Plesiomonas. Okay, then we have your microaerophiles. So we have your Campylobacter and Helicobacter. Okay, so most likely they are oxidase positive and they are asaccharoditic, so they do not metabolize your carbohydrates. Okay, and they are gram-negative curve. Okay, and they are also motile. At the same time, they have here, okay, they are microaerophiles. So let's include here your Campylobacter and Helicobacter. We'll start with your Campylobacter. Okay, the first species here, we have your Campylobacter jejoni. So Campylobacter jejoni has been infection here associated with your domestic animals. Let's try to cause here abortion among our domestic animals like your dog, your cat, okay, your sheep, ganun, domestic animals. Okay, and for the human, it tried to cause your gastroenteritis or diarrhea. And we consider this one as the most common cause of your bacterial gastroenteritis. You get infected by this one by direct exposure, direct contact with the infected animals, having direct contact with the infected animals, handling of that, or even ingestion of food contaminated with the animals, or even by food and even poultry products. Okay, so this one is self-limited, and this disease is also associated with your neurological disease. We call this one Guillain-Barré syndrome that is characterized by paralysis here. So it might be causing also or causing that infection related to that. Okay, then we have your Campylobacter fetus, subspecies fetus. So dito naman, it do not cause here gastroenteritis or diarrhea, but rather try to cause here septicemia or sepsis. So we consider this one as the most common contaminant of our blood culture and most likely try to infect your immunocompromised elderly patients. Helicobacter pylori is a causative agent of your peptic ulcer, duodenal ulcer, type B gastritis, which has been identified before as being caused by your chemical stimulant or even stress. And later on, for patients having a chronic Helicobacter pylori infection, it might result to your gastrointestinal tract tumor or cancer, carcinoma. Okay, it's virulence factor. So, you can have here, highly motile din siya. This one was urease positive. Siya lang ang urease positive natin sa group na to with your Campylobacter. And it also have here adhesine and cytolysine, which also contribute to the pathogenicity of this infection caused by this bacteria. Okay, then we have here the specimen collection and transport. So, For the Campylobacter jejuni, since it's one causing here the gastroenteritis or diarrhea, so the best sample for that is your fecal sample, and you need to transport that one with your steward, your cariblair. You could also have your campythio. On the case of your Campylobacter fetus subspecies fetus here, so this one is causing blood infection, so therefore blood as our sample for identification for isolation, then just need to perform your blood culture. And for the Helicobacter pylori, since it try to cause here gastric ulcer, so gastric biopsy, ang ating sample for that. You can have you transport the specimen with your steward. You could also have your cysteine brucella broth with 20% glycerol and should be frozen at negative 70 degrees Celsius para hindi siya mamatay. Okay, we have here the different culture media. So you could have your Campi BAP, primarily made up of your Brucella agar, as is agar base, plus your 10% ship RBC. Skyros, on the other hand, made up of your oxoid blood agar base, and that one would have your lysofibrinated horse red blood cells. Your Bachelor, on the other hand, that one would have your thioglycolate na fluid plus the agar plus your 10% na ship RBC pa din. Then we have your CCDA, your charcoal cephaloperazone deoxycholate agar is primarily made up of nitric agar as is agar base. Meron din siyang charcoal plus your sodium deoxycholate. So based on that, okay, so we have your culture media, incubation, growth requirement, temperature for your Campylobacter and your Helicobacter. For our Campylobacter, so our culture media for that, we have your Campythio, your Skyros, your Bachelor, and your CCDA. That one would able to grow at 42 or 37 degrees Celsius. And that one would have a requirement of 85% the nitrogen gas, 5% the oxygen, and 10% the carbon dioxide. And we consider this one as your microaerophiles. Kaya maliit lang or konti lang kanyang oxygen requirement. Your Helicobacter pylori, on the other hand, with culture media for that, you can have your Skyros, you can have your chocolate agar plus your Colbrosella agar with 5% horse red blood cells that one able to grow at 42 degrees Celsius. But for the gas requirement, that's 5 to 10% oxygen and 5 to 12% na carbon dioxide. Okay, we have here the morphology. So these two are gram-negative short cocobacilli. In the case of your Campylobacter, it appears to be S-shaped. It would have a characteristic na seagull wings. And however, that one is stained poorly with our usual na gram stain. So para ma-stain siya darker, so instead of your safranin, you can use your carbolefuscin as your counter stain. Or kung you stick with the safranin, then you just need to extend the staining time from 30 seconds lang naman, di ba, ang safranin natin. You can have here 2 to 3 minutes para it will able to take up the stain. In order for that, then magiging darkly colored. Okay, in the case of your, okay, we have your motility. So this is highly motile. The motility can be manifested in your brucella broth or even in thioglycolate broth, but not with your distilled water or saline solution because that one is toxic for the Campylobacter. Okay, so this one is highly motile because it contains one polar flagella. So isang flagella lang in one end. Helicobacter, on the other hand, is also motile, but that one would have here multiple flagella in one end. You call this one your Lophotrichus. Okay, then we have here the colony morphology. So in the case of your Campylobacter jejuni, that one would have here moist, runny, spreading colony. And usually that one is round. And that one would have here either raised or even flat na colony. That one is beta hemolytic. Your Campylobacter fetus, on the other hand, is characterized here by that one would have smooth, convex, pag ganon, and that one would have here translucent. Helicobacter pylori appears to be circular, small, and translucent. Then we have your definitive diagnosis here for differentiation with the three na mga microaerophiles. The first one, we have your hypurate hydrolysis test. This is the identification of the enzyme hypuricase. So it will give only a positive result for your jejuni. Growth at 42 degrees Celsius will identify your Jejoni and then your H. pylori. Because your fetus here will only grow not at 42 but at 25 degrees Celsius. Okay, urease enzyme here will identify your Helicobacter pylori. Then we have your antimicrobial susceptibility testing with your antibiotic na nalilisic acid. This one would have susceptible result. With your Jejoni, all the rest, the two here would have resistant result. But in the case of your cephalotin, it will have a resistant result. With your Jejoni, all the others are susceptible na result. Okay, then we have here the urease test for identification of your Helicobacter pylori. You can identify the presence of the urease enzyme by a culture method with the use of your crescent-sense urea. I think this one is this is broth medium. You could have this toward urease, ganun. It's broth medium. Contains the urea as a substrate. If your bacteria contains the enzyme urease, it will be converting your urea to your carbon dioxide and ammonia. Indicator for that, we have your phenol red, and the red is a positive color for that. So after you add your inoculum with your crescent urea, inoculated one, you incubate at 37 for 2 hours and observe here for the pink, red or pink na color. So that's positive results. Another one, identification of your urease na bacteria here would be your urea breath test, where you try to give radioactive labeled, a labeled na carbon, labeled carbon 13 and carbon 14, labeled with your urea. Sa urea labeled, may nakalabel, may nakatag sa kanya in order for you to measure. Then allow the patients, or you give this one, or try to inject this one to the patient. So if this would be absorbed by the patient sa kanyang blood circulation, if the patient has been infected by the bacteria Helicobacter pylori, the bacteria itself, since it contains the enzyme urease, your labeled na carbon will be converted to your carbon dioxide. And then, all you need to do is just allow the patient to exhale. So, pag ibubuga ng patient, and then try to measure the carbon dioxide. So, for example, ang labeled mo is carbon 13. So, ang product mo dito, carbon dioxide 13. If ang binigay mo sa patient is the labeled na carbon 14, ang product mo dito is carbon dioxide na 14. Bakit CO3? Okay, that's your carbon dioxide 14. So, ito yung may measure natin. How are you going to measure that one? So you have your instrument na scintillation counter that will allow you to measure the exhaled ng carbon dioxide 13 or 14. Okay, so that's for the urease identification, specific only for your Helicobacter pylori. Okay, so thank you.